Ladies and gentlemen, we just got some absolutely wild economic news, and I'll tell you what, I think you guys are going to like the topic of today's video. Now, as you all know, the radical progressives have been fear-mongering about President Trump's tariffs for months now, claiming that consumer prices will go through the roof, that everyone will lose their jobs, and really, that the entire economy will totally implode. Well, as it would turn out, none of those fear-mongering concerns were true. In fact, take a look at this. Just yesterday afternoon, we got the confirmation that not only are President Trump's tariffs working, they're pretty much shattering every single economic record in the history books. In the month of May, just last month, President Trump's tariff revenue reached an absolutely historic record $23 billion generated, ultimately showcasing the strength of President Trump's America First economic policies. And so what this means is that in just the last 3 months, we've seen a 168% increase in tariff revenue, and check this out. In this same time frame, we've also seen our trade deficit collapse from $162 billion down to $87 billion. Ladies and gentlemen, in just 3 months, President Trump's trade tariff negotiations have cut our national trade deficit in half. And so, folks, we have a lot more to talk about here, but first, I do want to say real quick that if you guys enjoy the daily news updates, please consider subscribing to the channel because it really does help a ton. But okay, check this out. As we said earlier, the radically progressive politicians inside of the Democratic Party, as well as their talking heads in the left-wing media, have been fear-mongering about President Trump's economic policies for months, but now all of their lies have been completely exposed. In fact, take a look at this exchange from just last month. Let it play.
But what people don't understand is, and this is a lot, the country eats the tariff, the company eats the tariff, and it's not passed along at all.
Well, some CEOs are saying they're going to have to pass it on. So how do you deal with those CEOs?
But the company,
how do you deal with those CEOs?
China is eating the tariffs right now.
What do you say to those CEOs who are saying we might have to pass this on to the consumer?
Well, they say that because maybe it's to their advantage to say it.
Will
Maybe
you punish them?
No, because you know what? I want them to build plants in the United States. That way they don't have any tariffs. See, tariffs will, and not only will, look at what's happened. In 2 months, we're close to $9 trillion of investment. We've never been anywhere near that.
Folks, notice how hard she was trying to push the narrative that tariffs are just a tax on the consumer. Remember when they all used to say that? Well, as we now know, that was a complete and total lie. As a consequence of President Trump's economic policies, tariff revenue is absolutely through the roof, inflation is down, trillions of dollars worth of foreign manufacturing investments have come pouring into the country, and American consumers are, guess what, doing just fine. In fact, as things currently stand, across pretty much every single sector of American industry, we're actually starting to see the CEOs of multi-billion-dollar businesses come out in support of President Trump's tariffs. And the reason why is because they all know better than anyone that these tariffs absolutely need to happen, and so they're all more than happy to work with President Trump to help make them happen. In fact, in just the last 2 weeks alone, we've seen the CEO of Amazon come out and say that the tariffs haven't impacted consumer spending whatsoever. We've seen the CEO of Nvidia give his full unbridled support for President Trump's tariff policy and his ongoing attempt to bring manufacturing back to America. And we've seen numerous American automotive manufacturers say that even if there are any increases in manufacturing costs, they will eat them and not pass them on to the American consumer. In a weird way, it's almost like the exportation of all of our labor overseas and relying so heavily on foreign manufacturing has been this sort of highly addictive, incredibly deadly drug that all of the American manufacturers have been addicted to now for decades, but deep down, they all know that it's just slowly killing them. And so now, for the first time in decades, they see that President Trump is the one person that's actually making a concerted effort to help them all get clean, so to speak. But of course, despite the blatant reality of President Trump's ongoing economic success, the far-left progressive media is doing absolutely everything they can to downplay everything he's doing. Take a look.
Yeah, a CNN reporter also was trying to downplay some of these great economic numbers. Watch this.
Of course, there's still so much coming as far as tariffs, and a lot of economists do believe that this is still the calm before the storm, that we will eventually see tariff-driven price hikes. Not totally seeing it yet, but it is the expectation to come.
Senator, look, again, you and I have talked about this. The Senate needs to cut spending. Okay, the House didn't cut it enough. I don't care what anyone says. I try to spin it. Cut the spending, because that is a threat. But Trump's actually growing the economy with all these investments. That's a good thing.
Oh, it's a great thing. And the tariffs are a huge part of this. Listen, Laura, I just talked to the president today, and actually he made this point to me. He said, Josh, the tariffs are going to be great for this country. We are rebuilding American industry. We are rebuilding American jobs. What a great thing to have a president who finally wants to put America back to work and actually cares that American workers get better jobs at higher wages. I mean, what a concept. But after the last 4 years, I mean, really, it is something new. It is something refreshing. And this is why you look at the president's numbers, his approval numbers. You look at the economic numbers. Look at the data any way you want. What you see is success, success, success. And that's because of Trump's policies. He's turning around this ship, and he's heading it in the right direction.
Success, success, success. Ladies and gentlemen, that is the truth. As we spoke about earlier, right now tariff revenue is at an absolute all-time high because of President Trump's economic tactics, which means for the first time in decades, we are actually starting to claw our way out of our crippling national debt. And as Senator Hawley mentioned, it doesn't matter what economic metric you look at to determine the overall health of the economy, all of the metrics are looking amazing right now. Numerous countries around the world have completely dropped their lopsided and predatory tariffs on American products. American unemployment remains low and stable. Consumer confidence is absolutely through the roof. Folks, the list just goes on and on. Without a shadow of a doubt, President Trump's economy is absolutely on fire. But you know what? Let's do some math real quick. If President Trump's tariffs generated $22 billion in May, that means that as a country, we're generating over $709 million per day just from these tariffs. And so really, the proper way to look at that is that countries around the world are willing to pay $709 million per day in order to access the American consumer base. Just like if you want to get into the most popular club in town on a Saturday night, you have to pay an entrance fee at the door. That's exactly what this tariff revenue really is. If other countries want to gain access to the extremely wealthy American consumer market, now that President Trump is back in the White House, they have to pay an entrance fee. And you know what? It's working. They're all doing it. And right now, our country is getting rich because of it. And so, ladies and gentlemen, as I like to say, this is what it looks like when we actually have a leader in the White House who puts America first. Now, ladies and gentlemen, before we wrap up, I do want to say real quick that we officially have a Morse News Twitter page as well as a Morse News Facebook page. So if you use either of those platforms, please go down below and drop a follow in order to get breaking news updates that relate to everything we talk about here in the YouTube videos. But everyone, that is going to be a wrap for today's video, so please go down below and drop a comment. Let me know what you think about all of this. Please like the video while you're down there, and like I said earlier, please consider subscribing to the channel because it really does help a ton. Thank you all very much for tuning in today, and of course, as always, stay safe.